Welcome everyone to our April Core Advocate webinar, Text at the Center. We're so glad that you're here tonight, and we're going to get started in just a moment. I see folks are already introducing themselves in the group chat, so I'll help you find that if you haven't already in just a moment. You'll also notice that there is a little green box called your resource widget, and that has some of the resources that are going to be talked about during today's session, and you'll be able to access those at any time. Some really quick introductions. I'm Tori Filler. I'm a literacy specialist on the professional learning team. I'm just here to help things get going tonight along with my colleague Nicole Bravo. And I'll introduce our two fabulous guests in just a moment, but sneak preview on the screen there. In case you haven't heard of the Core Advocates before, Core Advocates are a group of folks and instructional advocates that really believe in the power of standards to prepare all students for college and careers, and they are constantly working to improve their own instructional practice as well as support their peers. They support each other in the work, and they really work to ensure equitable outcomes for all students. So if you're not already a Core Advocate, we'd love for you to join in. Just wanted to get a quick sense of who's out there tonight. See some folks are still signing on, but we'd love for you to answer this quick poll question about how many Core Advocate webinars you have attended. So there's a couple of options on the screen, and you just click right on the screen. We're going to be using polls throughout tonight, so this is your first practice opportunity. Just click right on the screen with how many Core Advocate webinars you've attended, and we'll see everyone's results in just a moment. I wonder if we'll get any 20 plus tonight. Give you another second to get your vote in. And while that's tabulating, if you haven't joined the Core Advocate Network yet, you can definitely email us to find out more about the network and find out about some of our opportunities. There's also a survey that you can take to join our mailing list, which lets you know about tons of great opportunities just like this one. And you might know us by our website, achievethecore.org, but if you haven't been there, there are loads and loads of free resources for you to check out. And this webinar and the PowerPoint will be posted there a couple days after this is over. So if you would like access to this PowerPoint, you can check the website and it'll be right there for you. All right, a great mix today. Oh my gosh, we did. We got a 16 to 20 at the end. That's awesome. But also huge welcome to our first timers here. So glad you're here. We hope you come back for more. We look forward to your feedback at the end. And welcome everyone. So exciting. Last update for you, or just reminder, is that if you have Twitter and you want to tweet along with us tonight, there is a little box at the bottom of your screen. That's the Twitter icon. And you can feel free to actually tweet right in that box, so you don't even have to leave this webinar screen to tweet along with us tonight. Achieve the Core is Student Achievement Partners handle, and you can also find one of our presenters, Meredith Levin, at MJ Levin. We're going to take just a couple of seconds. There's a bunch of new folks. So we have a brief video that just explains some of the features of the platform tonight and give you a few clues about how to use it. If you've already been on this platform, you can feel free to check out some of the resources in the resource tab, but it'll just be a minute to make sure everyone's comfortable.
Welcome to the platform we'll be using for today's professional learning experience. A few quick tips to help you get started. On the left-hand side, you'll see this tells you about all of the widgets or capabilities that are available for today's session. If you click any of those widget icons, you can see that that widget will appear and disappear on your screen. You can also resize by clicking on any of the boxes or widgets to make them bigger or smaller, and even move them around your screen. The next widget is the media player. This will be used if there's any video or audio content for today's session. The Q&A widget is for you to ask questions directly of the presenters. You might ask a question about the content that you're hearing today or about something you're having trouble with on the platform. The next widget is the resource list. The resource tab has any resources that the presenter may be referencing during today's session. If you click on those, your screen will automatically show the resource that is needed. and you'll tab back over in your internet browser to get back to the platform. The group chat is where you can talk directly with other participants on the line today. Type your message in, click submit, and everyone who's on the line will be able to see what you're saying. Last but not least is the Twitter widget. This is where you can see tweets coming in from our handle, Achieve the Core, and watch other tweets that are appearing with the hashtag Achieve the Core from today's session. Take a moment to fix the widgets on your desktop so that they fit your own needs. You can make them bigger or smaller, move them around, and you're ready to go for today's session.
All right. So we are ready to introduce our two fabulous presenters. If you do have any questions about the platform itself or you need anything tonight, remember that you can ask us questions in the Q&A widget. But I'm going to hand it over to the amazing Meredith Lieben. She's a senior fellow at Student Achievement Partners, and Sue Pimentel, she's a founding partner at Student Achievement Partners. We are thrilled to have you both here tonight and can't wait to learn from you.
And we are thrilled to be here. I'm really excited about this topic. I'm Meredith Lieben. As you can see, I'm Senior Fellow for Strategic Initiatives at Student Achievement Partners, and we're really excited to share this work with you.
Indeed, and this is Sue Pimentel. Welcome, everyone.
So these are the goals of the webinar. So please hold us to these. That we're going to allow plenty of time for questions, and there's several pause points as well. So we want you to see, if you don't know it already, and then be able to state the case for keeping text at the center of instruction, for really understanding and being able to talk about why that's central to student success and joy and all good things around literacy. That's one. And knowing precisely what those practices are that improve reading comprehension and what are the ones that are less successful. Second, we're going to look at why strategy-centered instruction still has such a hold on instruction and assessment, and of course those are linked. And as part of that, we're going to wrestle with what a reading test does and does not measure in students, and that sometimes runs contrary to the reports we receive about what and the claims that have been made. So those are the goals. So plunging right in, we want to do this. What does it mean to keep text at the center of instruction? So we are research-driven and research-based, and investing in text for your classroom does a lot of things. For the youngest students and for all students who either aren't yet at grade level or who you want to accelerate, reading aloud and teaching students how to read solidly by grade 2 are crucial activities. And we're not talking about foundational skills here tonight. We often do talk about that, but please know that we believe that's the underpinning. And of course, if the students didn't learn to read solidly by grade 2, then you keep reading aloud to them and you keep working on their ability to read for themselves. Those needs don't go away. Here are the things students do need that we know they need to become stronger readers. They need to grow their knowledge of the world, of all kinds of things. They need to grow their vocabulary, especially their academic vocabulary, as text gets more complex. And they need to understand a variety of syntax. They need to be that cluster that together is academic language. And they do those things by spending time actually reading. And the reading has to be content-rich, and it should be complex, whether they're getting it through their ears or through their eyes, so they discover how to learn from reading. That is the centerpiece of our work as educators. They also need to read a volume of text, and that needs to be on a range of topics and, importantly, a variety of complexity levels with little teacher support. So the variety of complexity levels when you're reading, when students are reading independently, that is when we are all in on students reading where they currently can. We don't believe that's static. We believe students who are knowledgeable about a topic, we know students who are knowledgeable and interested in something can read beyond their professed level. So that's not static what we're talking about, but we do believe in a large variety of topics and access points when students are reading independently. These things yield reading comprehension. So this is a slide that's certainly out there a lot. This is going to be followed by your first quiz, so pay attention. This is complex text is complex. There's lots of features to it. And we're giving you the top 10 that cause impact on text, that most impact text. So on this slide, there are complex sentences. So that can be sentences with lots of clauses or text that has lots of variety in sentence lengths and styles. It can be, when those are mingled, short sentences can be really hard to parse. And students often don't understand that authors use short sentences to create impact, for example. Uncommon vocabulary, uncommon to the student or to that grade level. That is a huge barrier for complex, or that a causal agent rather for complex text. Dense information. Oops, my order is, I'm on the second slide, sorry. The lack of words and sentences or paragraphs. It's the third bullet. A lot of times authors will review things or pull things together for students. So if you think about a textbook, they classically do that a lot because the intent is to teach students. When you do that too much, it can actually be dull and you can lose focus. But if it doesn't do it at all and you're left to infer and make bridging inferences, it's hard. Lengthy paragraphs are really tough, especially if readers lack stamina. Short paragraphs sometimes can be glossed over by that same exhausted student, so you get a sort of Goldilocks effect that actually causes difficulty. But lengthy paragraphs are more complex. And then text structure, that's anything that's less narrative. Narrative is what we're hardwired to read. That's the way our brain works, and that's true of oral comprehension as well as reading comprehension. And a lot of times a single text will scramble. We'll use a lot of different structures deliberately. That makes text more complex. Here are the rest of them. If an author makes subtle transitions or jumps around a lot, sometimes without warning or so subtly that they might get mixed, that makes text more complex. If there's lots of themes or purposes going on, that also does. If the information is packed densely in, we can all relate to that. That makes text more complex. And then anything that's unfamiliar, unfamiliar or unusual settings, topics, or events will make text more complex because it takes pretty esoteric knowledge or less usual knowledge. And then if there is a lack of repetition or overlap, if somebody does not go back and review, if there's a lot of pronouns, for example, and not a lot of guidance, that makes text complex. Now these 10, I know this is not a math webinar, but I did the math on this one. These 10 can be present in text in any combination. So that is, if you go all the way back to, I think, trig or algebra 2, that's 10 factorial. 10 times 9 times 8 times 7. Those are the combinations. There are over 3.6 million ways text can combine to be complex. That's a lot. And obviously the goal is not to expose children to 3.6 million different types of text so that they cover the waterfront. It is to let them read a lot so they get familiar with the challenges and variety of text and have a great repertoire for doing it. Okay, time for the quiz. Let's see, I'm not seeing the questions on the slideshow. I'm seeing the answer, so I think I will read the quiz to you.
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Maybe they can, Meredith, you can read it, and they can type it in the group chat.
Yes. Luckily, it's so windy here that I printed the PowerPoint out because I thought I might lose electricity. So here it is. 2 of these and I have to go back. We'll have to go back. Let me go back. I'll make it easier. 2 of these on this slide impact comprehension far more than the others. So these are complex text ingredients. 2 of these impact student comprehension or reader comprehension. So which 2 do you think they are? Okay? So take another look at these 5, and I'm going to move you to the poll questions so you can all answer. So if you could screenshot this, shoot this, you're great. If not, you have to memorize it, and here you go. Oh, good Lord. We don't even have answers. Okay, let's make the top. So how do we do this?
I think it would be
best
just
type
if
we just skip this
I think that'd be great if folks could use the group chat. So let's leave these on the screen.
Perfect. Okay.
There we go.
Stuff is coming in now in the group chat.
Yay, thank you everybody for being so flexible. Okay, a lot of people, it looks like, are picking uncommon vocabulary. And after that, everything is coming in. Dense information several times, long paragraphs, lack of words that hold things together. So let's just cut to the chase. So I'm going to give people another chance. There's so many people that they're just flying in. Text structure and uncommon vocab again. Uncommon vocab is definitely the thread that's uniting these details. Wow, they're coming so fast I can't even keep track. Okay, I'm going to tell you because almost everybody has the first one. Well, somehow we managed a 100% answer. Okay, here they were. And here are the answers. So it is uncommon vocabulary. So I saw that on almost everybody's answer. So that is great. And complex sentences comes in second at the sentence level. So comprehension breaks down, and this is really interesting to think about, at the sentence level. And of course it breaks down if there's too many words on the page that you do not know. Those are the 2 factors that impact complexity most and impact comprehension most. So there are a lot of implications for instruction buried there, carried with that. And if anybody is an ELL teacher or has experience with ELL students, kids who are coming in who are not native speakers of English, academic language is a huge deal. ELL teachers have known this for a long, long time. And the truth is, these are key factors. So I'm going to turn it over to Sue.
Okay, great. And I just want to add one thing, Meredith. Just to the notion of why it's important to think about what makes a text complex, because as you're focusing on the text, it helps to know where, as Meredith was talking about, the comprehension may break down, because that's where you may want to focus. It's where you may want to ask good questions to make sure that students can get it. Okay, so let's get to it. What is the research base for reading strategies? And I want to add, what is the research base for limiting research strategies? Do you want me to do the slide?
Nope, I got it.
Oh, there it is. Okay. So research does say that reading strategies should be activated when a text stops making sense. And just to say it, there's oodles of evidence for the following 4. So let's put those up, Meredith. Monitoring your own understanding of text, questioning the text as you read. You can imagine summarizing a text when you read, paraphrasing sections of text. So these are habits, these are internalized practices that those of us, and that would include all of us on the phone here, are good readers. And so it's important to teach them. I just want to say one little thing. You notice predictions isn't on this list because the research behind predictions is not so great. So these are the ones that are most important. But the important thing to think about is when do you activate them? And also, the whole point is not to organize a whole lesson around it, where the objective is just to use the reading strategies. The point that they're reading strategies is because they are strategic. So is there research? You betcha there is. But there's also a way to use them and a way not. So let's go to the next slide where we can hear from researcher Dan Willingham, who's always interesting to listen to, about what he talks about in terms of the
one thing that
limit.
you want educators here to do differently as a result of your work.
Yeah, I was thinking about that since this is the sort of theme question. What would I like? And this, unlike many talks I give, this has a little bit less of a Monday morning ready, applicable feel to it. I think this is long haul. What I emphasize is curriculum. And, you know, I would love the idea of a bunch of you went in like a wrecking crew on Monday morning and said, here comes the new curriculum, guys, look out. But I know that's really not in the cards. That's not practical. So that's sort of a long, slow burn. But I do feel like it's essential if you're teaching something to have a very clear idea of what the goal state is that you're moving towards. One way is, and so that's one piece. And then the second piece, I think, is that if anybody is, I didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about reading, comprehension, strategy, instruction. I actually spent no time talking about that at all. That's a whole other talk. I'll very briefly allude to some of that data. There is an enormous amount of research work on reading, comprehension, strategy, instruction. It absolutely works. There's no evidence, though, that it does any more than provide a one-time boost. So you get a really big, really sizable one-time boost with reading, comprehension, strategy, instruction, but then it levels off. So briefly, what those data, the way researchers have looked at that is they've compared interventions where it's like 5 or 10 lessons versus interventions where it's like 30 or 50 class sessions devoted to it. And what you find is 5 or 10 sessions leads to the same boost as 30 or 50. So that's the second thing I would Monday morning recommend you think about, to the extent that you have flexibility about this, is how much time you're devoting to reading, comprehension, strategy, instruction.
So there you have it. So what he's saying is don't pound away on them. I know I've looked at some textbooks, and they'll go nameless, but it seems like every lesson they're doing that, and every lesson they're asking students to use them. So let's look at some more research by McKeown, Beck, and Blake. So what they did is they took a look at 5th grade students from a low-performing urban school, and they put 3 groups together. So they had a control group that they were using their traditional basal with all that it had in it. So it had some questions that were tied to the reading. They had a strategies focus group, and that group really was all about how, guiding students' access to text using reading strategies. That was what they were going to do. And then there was a content instruction or content focus group where students were, as you can imagine, being given a series, reading the text. They're all reading text, meaning-based questions about the text, and a series of them. So let's show what the results, because they're pretty stunning. So here's what the research confirmed, and that is, and I should stop for 1 second, what they measured was students' discussion, their conversations with one another after they had read the text in one of these 3 approaches. The content approach won hands down. So what does that mean? It means that the length and quality of the student recall was higher about the text, the discussion was more text-focused, and the length of the student responses was nearly triple. But that's not all. So the strategies-based approach, what was interesting is those students performed the worst. So they came in behind essentially the control group, which was using the basal. And what was really interesting, so sort of basing on what Dan Willingham told us, is the students there were no more successful in using comprehension strategies than other groups. So what Dan Willingham is telling us is that, yes, teach the reading strategies, but once students have them, there are ways to bring them in strategically, but don't pound away on them.
And Sue, I was just going to add, they actually also administered a standardized reading comprehension test, not a state test, but like Gates McGinnity or something, and they had the same order of finish.
So there you go. Really important information for us to have. Yep. You can go to the next slide. Yep. Do you want to, so the standard of coherence, and Meredith, why don't you do this slide, because this is about what we know. This is from you, and so I think it's best if you do this slide.
Okay. So the first one is David Lieben and David Pearson. But the question came up when the Common Core State Standards were getting written is, what distinguishes an excellent reader from a competent reader? What's the comprehension difference? And interestingly, there has not been a lot of research on this. So if any of you are thinking about going and getting your PhDs in cognitive science or any area of reading, this is a really open field. The people that have been doing research on this have named this thing called the standard of coherence. That is what distinguishes excellent readers from the rest of the pack. And I defined it here, but it's a little bit fancy. Basically, a reader who has a high standard of coherence, which is what you want, can't stand not understanding. So they assume, their baseline assumption and confidence, because this really is an affective thing as much as it can be cultivated, we believe, through rich text exposure. But anyway, they believe the text should make sense. And so when they're reading something and it doesn't make sense, they basically feel that they can do something about it. So what they do is they fire up those reading comprehension strategies that we talked about, that Daniel McNamara's work shows consistently have the high yield, like comprehension monitoring. That's when they realize, whoop, I don't understand anything and it's kind of aggravating me, so I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to go back and reread. I'm going to question the text. I'm going to question myself. I'm going to look and see if there's words I don't understand that are interfering. I'm going to summarize the parts I do know as I go along to see if I can figure it out. And so they do something about it, and that is the firing up of reading comprehension strategies. They are not listing out authors, characteristics. They are not asking themselves the main idea. They are not. They might be paraphrasing if it's really complicated. That's another. That similarly is a way to monitor your comprehension. But they do those high value things, and that is what separates excellent comprehenders from others. And as you know, your kids that can't read well do not expect text to make meaning. They don't ever get that payoff. So when the going gets tough, they go. They leave the house. They do not stick around and try to do something about it. So that stubbornness is part of what we're trying to inculcate in students.
Thanks. So sort of the bottom line here, to finish off this section before we ask you a couple of more questions, is the text itself is where teachers and students should spend their time, right? So what does that mean? So it means gearing your instruction to the particulars of the text so students can understand what the nuance is that the author is providing them. I want to stop a moment on the grade level standards, because they should be top of mind, meaning that what is it that the text is just aching to have questions about? What is it that you should, and the standards can help be a good guide there, so because they'll tell you sort of what is the approximate level of challenge that you should be, your questions should be geared to. So they play a role. The text is, however, central. And then, of course, you think about your students' needs and strengths. And my last point here is that reading strategies, as we just heard from Meredith, need to be running in the background. So what does that mean? So besides briefly teaching students strategies early in their reading careers, it can mean that if you're a teacher and you watch a student solve a problem that they're having with a particular reading passage, and you see what maybe they did. Maybe they stopped and asked a question about a text or something, and you can point that out. You can also say when you're not, when you're having trouble, you can ask students to bring it out. If you're looking at a complex text and there's a particular paragraph or section of the text, you can ask students to paraphrase. Well, turn to their partner and paraphrase what you think has been said, or summarize what you think has just been said. So there are ways to monitor students' comprehension, use those reading strategies, but have them running in the background. And now we're going to get to a couple of questions. And Meredith, I want to give you a chance too as we move to the poll questions we want to ask. If there's anything else you want to add about this notion of the research behind reading strategies and the research behind limiting their use.
No, I think we've touched on it, and it'll
okay,
get
good.
more real as we move on.
All right. So we have two questions. Meredith and I think this is the easy one. Then we have a tougher one for you. So write in the group chat box, and Meredith and I will take a look. What do you know when a student gets a series of reading questions right? So they're taking, let's say they're taking an assessment. It could be an interim assessment. They've read some passages, and they're getting like most of the reading questions right. What do you know about a student who's getting the reading questions right? And go ahead and put it in the group chat, and someone's clapping. Yes.
We don't get a certificate for getting this question right, Karen. I don't know about participating in the webinar.
So think about what you know about your comprehensions happening.
They are good test takers.
Yeah.
But yes, but
they're good. I can't read that fast. They're comprehending the text. Yes. Time to enrich. Someone said time to enrich. Yep.
They have unlocked comprehension. Yep.
Yep. They're engaged.
They may or may not be engaged with the test, right? But I think they have intact skills that they can power up, and just do fine on the test. So yes, things are intact. You guys, you nailed it. I'm glad. Whenever somebody says this is an easy question, I always get a little test anxiety. But
there you
it's
go.
not this crew.
Wow.
All right, you ready for the hard one?
Yeah, here it comes. Go ahead, Meredith.
Okay, so get ready for the next one. A little bit harder one. It's the analog. It's the inverse. What have you learned when a student gets a reading comprehension question wrong?
And I think people are typing in their answers now. Just a quick reminder that the group chat has that little blue icon with the two speech bubbles. If you're having trouble finding it, you need to open it up on the bottom of your screen.
Somebody said not much.
Not much. I saw some. I take it the question mark I saw was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Decoding might have broken down. They might have decoding questions. Smart group. I don't know if you all needed Sue and me.
Some issues around vocabulary I've seen.
Yeah.
Poor knowledge of the topic.
They may not have the drive or motivation for sure, but didn't understand either the question or the text, vocabulary gaps.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody just said, I need to know the student and the question. Yay.
And ask the student. I saw that one too. I need to ask them. Check it out. Foundational skills may be lacking. There's another one. I might think about fluency.
Many reasons, and then a list.
Yep. And I wonder when someone says many reasons, it's because it could be one of several, I think is what they're telling us, right? Decoding, vocabulary, background, so much.
Yeah. Okay.
Could mean so many things. Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Word attack instead of meaning, or that may be all they can focus on is word attack. They may not be good enough at word attack to focus up beyond it.
I did see someone mention standards, but I think they thought it was possibly one reason why, but not the only reason.
Poor working memory. Okay, this is a sharp group. For sure. Yeah. So we're going to keep going, even though I know there's still energy around the chat. The truth is, we don't know.
They're behind, bias.
We don't know. These are all possible reasons why it got wrong. So that has huge implications for what we do about it. And here's what we usually do about it, everybody. Even with all this knowledge in the chat box, even with my knowledge, there was a point in my career where this is what I did with it. And here's the question, just to go back. Why is a strategies focus so tenacious? And the fact is, we know all this stuff that you all loaded into the chat box. And I have to say, you all are self-selected and very clear, demonstrating your knowledge. So I'm glad you know all this, but the fact is what many of us actually do in the classroom is we reteach strategies. We go back and we drill down on strategies. So the question is, why is it so tenacious? It is in the most popular of our reading materials, all but the newest one. And the newest ones have broken away from it, but we still walk classrooms where we see people using beautiful new materials, fully aligned, high quality, gorgeous text. And they are not asking the questions as designed, they're asking comprehension strategies questions about these materials. So it's really tenacious. It has been tenacious for a quarter of a century, even though the Beck and McKeown study, all research points to it not being effective.
And Meredith, too, it's what most of us learn when we go, when we get our degrees.
Right. Yes, it is what we're taught to do. And it's what our materials tell us to do still in the overwhelming number of materials.
Yes.
And it's what test reports tell us to do. So one reason is traditional literacy instruction oversimplifies reading. And I'm not talking about the simple view of reading, which is research-based. I'm talking about oversimplifying reading comprehension. So you get a question like this, which is a little hard to read on my screen, but Derek and the narrator start to make fish faces. How does this affect what happens next in the story? So there's multiple choice. And again, why might a student get the wrong answer? All that you said in the chat box, all those reasons. But when we get the analysis of it, we basically say, oh, this is we need to figure out sequencing here. We need to drill down on this. So here's a little cycle. The answer, we plan a plan of attack based on his wrong answer, and then we reteach. Usually we don't go back into the text to puzzle it out, especially when it's on assessments. We go back, we drill down on what kind of question this was. But look what should have happened. Sue, are these your slides? I'm sorry.
No, these are yours. But
yeah.
Meredith, while you do that, we got one question in the chat box. Are we saying not to teach reading strategies? That's not our message, but our message is once you teach them, students have them, and then pull them up every once in a while as you watch students struggle with a text, or make sure students know to be able to grab them, certain ones. You can use them in a classroom, like paraphrasing, summarizing, asking students to ask questions. But it's just that the point is not to make it the objective of the lesson when you're teaching a text. It really is just those should be used strategically to help students understand what it is the author's saying and the knowledge you're trying to gain from it.
Right. So teach them lightly, as Willingham said. The students get them very quickly, and you can move on. You can also you can stop and do meta. You can ask kids how they got a question right and have them model that for the class. And they will actually say what they went through to get the question right. Teaching students on this is powerful metacognition for everybody. So that answer, this is really a small menu of what you all poured into the chat box. Why might a student get the wrong answer? It could be because he failed to describe characters in a story, didn't understand their traits and motivations or feelings. Maybe that's it. That kid is just bad at figuring people out, whether it's in person or in stories, but much more likely one of these things on the right that are in color broke down, one or more of these things broke down for this student. Something else was going on. And you, again, a few people said this, that you really don't know why a student got the wrong answer unless you talk to the student and find out or have a discussion, which is why text-based questions and rich text discussion and tons of oral discourse are potent tools in a classroom. Let the kids talk to each other about why they got it wrong or right. Find out what's going on for kids and show them what it looks like when kids successfully made their way to a right answer. What did that kid do differently? What did the child do who got it right do differently from the student who got it wrong? That student who got it wrong will be paying close attention because they want to get it right. They want to get them right too. They want to be strong readers too. That's pretty universal. So here's a fabulous book, Jackie Woodson's basically memoirs, well celebrated. Look at this cover with all of the honors on it. And here's what we tend to do with it. This week, all week, because it's character development week, we're going to just look at anybody Jackie Woodson encounters and at herself. That's what we're drilling down on this week. It's character development week. Next week, we might do some setting work. That is not how we choose to read, and it's not how healthy readers read. So go ahead.
There was a question that came up in the box. I'm not looking at it right now, but it's like, are we talking about strategies or are we talking about skills? And we're actually talking about both. And that's what you're bringing up here, is this notion about pounding away on a particular skill. If you're using the Common Core, you would think of like reading standard 2 through 9, which is about important skills, but that's what you're really talking about here. It's character week, or it's main idea week, or it's text structure week, and you're using your text, and that's what you're pounding away on.
Right. And comprehension strategies are those high-value activities like comprehension monitoring, stopping and summarizing, not at the end because your teacher made an assignment and made you, but stopping and summarizing for yourself to make sure you're tracking the gist. So summarizing while reading, monitoring, you're actually paying attention. Am I with it? Am I not? Like that, kids don't know they're supposed to actively pay attention to whether or not they're understanding. And that can be a revelation, just taking that into the classroom tomorrow and having a conversation about comprehension monitoring. And then, whoops, when you're not, what do you do about it? Those are strategies. And then, yes, the skills are the activities that questions tend to be about. So this is, all these things are available probably in every 2 or 3 pages of of Brown Girl Dreaming. So and I picked this because she spent a week in our school once. So that's why I picked this title. She hadn't written this book then. It was a long time ago. But look at all this and notice that these are not all reading standards. There's a lot of speaking and listening standards. There's writing standards and reading standards. And a lively classroom has lots and lots and lots of speaking and listening going on. Student speaking and listening. Remember, who's doing the work is going to be the person who's doing the learning. So this is how the standards, we would argue, and Sue Pimentel, I'm sure everybody knows, was the lead author of the Common Core. She, too, would argue that the standards get actualized by activating them daily in your classroom in multiple ways and not worrying about whether your students have mastered one at a given set point in the year. Just keep rolling them through, as she said herself, as the text calls for them. So do you want to say anything else about that?
Yeah, just the fact that I think for decades we stopped understanding why we read. I know that might sound a little bit strange, but students we never said to students, we want you to understand what this author said, what you now know that you didn't know before, and when you read another text on the same topic, what does that add to? Does it fight with what you knew? And so the whole point is to be able to activate these standards so that students can then understand what's in the text. But the text should drive that. So it isn't, pounding away at one standard at a time with a variety of texts, but that students are building their knowledge over several lessons, over a unit, so that the whole point of reading and reading well is to build their knowledge.
And somebody just asked in the chat, how do we assess the standards? How do we know if they've gotten the standards? You can only know if they got a standard on that text. You could go ahead to the next text and the kid could collapse on that standard. So there's no such thing as permanent mastery of a standard, because the text complexity, remember that 10 factorial? The next text that comes in could be complex in completely different ways. And so a child that was nailing, nailing the word choice, the author's word choice in the previous text could be completely waylaid by the poem you read the next week. So you don't ever, it's a moving target. If you get the kids deeply reading and comprehending in all these ways, all the reading test is at the end of the year is a reading comprehension test. So if your kids can read with understanding, remember what you know when kids get things right. You know that they're firing on all cylinders. That's when you know they've pretty much nailed the standards for that grade level. And you don't have to worry about mastery. And I know with standards-based report cards, you're forced to worry about these things. But no matter what, the way to access students doing well on standards-based report cards is just to assert that they're making progress in some way and just keep on doing text-centered instruction. That is the only way you're going to actually come out the other end with better readers. That is the point of this, and so many parts of our system and so many parts of our materials and assessments and interim assessments are direct assaults on us keeping text at the center. So we feel like this is a battle that we have to fight for reading to be rational and humane and real. And
enjoyable.
Our systems and enjoyable, yes. And this is what the Common Core and the College and Career Ready standards are fighting for. If you read the front matter and you read everything around them, they're made to try to bring back holistic language experiences to classrooms. So this is a battle because everything's fractured in schools and school systems, and everybody tries to measure stuff, and it's a tough battle. So common sense goes out the window, and we do crazy stuff to kids. So this to us is the question. You get to teach this book. You get to teach a great article. What made it worth reading? Let that drive your instruction, beginning to end. What made it worthy of student time and attention? Talk about that. Have your students think about that.
All right, so we're going to zippity-doo-dah through the next slide, which is why is strategy focus so tenacious? We've talked about it in part. There are reading strategies that need to be activated at times, especially when you don't understand. There are standards to focus on, which can help a student through a text. I saw someone, I think it was Dana, who wrote, the point isn't just to understand the setting, it's to understand the text. So yes, understanding the setting might be part of understanding the text, but the whole point is to really understand the fullness of the text. So if you go to the next one, I think, Dana, this was your quote too. You said, well, why is it that this is so tenacious? Well, many interim assessments report out standard by standard. We've also heard report cards sometimes report out standard by standard, a strategy which makes the problem persist. How is it that teachers are supposed to ignore when the reports come in looking like this? Or how is a principal, if some of you are principals, to ignore that, well, here's where students are getting it right, here are where they're getting it wrong. So what do?
We advance the slide. Okay, so here are some action steps we want to call on you to do or to reaffirm if you're already doing them. Stay the course. Send people to us if you have people putting pressure on you in your systems. We have that a lot of student achievement partner work is trying to make systemic change at scale or locally. One of the things I am intrigued by is that we have been asked as professionals to set aside our diagnostic abilities. In other words, to look at our students, to talk to our students, and to actually know what our students do and don't know, and what is troubling them, where they need help. We have actually outsourced our diagnostics to interim assessments, and we are told to wait for the results, and then oh, now I know what my kids don't know. Those get reported back as standard, that they lack certain standards mastery or certain skills mastery. That's stuff we've been talking about. So you cannot wait for external assessments to tell you what your students can do. Ask your students what broke down in understanding. That is the shortest distance between two lines. Use questions.
And Meredith, we had a lot of people, I just wanted to give a lot of people credit in the chat box because they said a lot of that. Ask the students,
Yep.
Have students have a conversation. So you are already on it.
Yes. So, and then questions themselves, just as questions can be supports and can help kids focus on where you want them to focus in a text, they can also be quick checks, right? Ask an easy question with a hard text to see if your kids are tracking. Because if they don't understand what's going on, you need to do something, again, to repair comprehension, and you need to hold them accountable to monitor their own comprehension. So, I would ask a question, and if a lot of the kids didn't know, I'd kind of get after them and say, well, why didn't you ask somebody? Why didn't you stop stop me and find out? And, kids don't always know what they don't know. I don't know if you know the old book called The Key, where I think a wealthy boy and a poor guy, an older guy, get stuck on a little island together. They're shipwrecked, and they're the only survivors. And the older man is blind. Well, we were teaching that book in our school. I wasn't teaching it. The teacher that was teaching it quit. And so I inherited the reading group. And they were about, 80 pages into the novel. I found out not one of them knew that the two people were on an island, even though the title was the C-A-Y, and it's pronounced key. They did not realize, they didn't understand why the little boy who didn't like the old man didn't just walk away from him and leave. Like, they didn't know that basic thing about the setting. Nobody had checked with them about it. And that's the kind of, that shouldn't happen. So questions can be quick checks, and students can learn. If you show them, they can learn how to monitor their understanding. Hold them to it. And then here's juicy sentences, which came up in the chat before. Boost their reading abilities. Do fluency. If your kids are disfluent, they must become fluent. So you need to pay attention to the reading skills, the foundational reading skills that are not intact in your students. If they can't access for themselves, chunk it, read out loud, reread it, have them follow along for fluency, and spend a lot of time reading. This is the key to the vault. But don't give away your diagnostic abilities to the next interim assessment. Don't give that power away, because that is what makes us professionals. And Tori just put fluency resources in the chat. And Sue, I'm going to give you this slide because you have the inside scoop on it.
Okay, so I just want to say too, there's some good conversation going on about fluency and about daily fluency practice. Do you want to say something about that even for first graders? There was a question in there about first graders and daily fluency practice. Meredith.
So what you want in first grade is automaticity as much as they can. You want them to get those word patterns rock solid. So yes, you should model what fluency looks like, and they should read their hopefully decodable text fluently. They should be expected to understand what they read, even if it's not the deepest thing ever. So that's what first grade fluency should look like. In kindergarten, you should be modeling it for them to read aloud. They should have sentence strips. You can start fluency even in kindergarten, but the real push is, of course, as students learn to decode with automaticity. So they get those phonics patterns cold. Then you work on fluency so they can unlock their brain to think about what it means.
Super. All right. So tests, and so many of you have noted it. What do we know? We get these reports back. What do they tell us? They don't tell us what we need them to tell us. So at Student Achievement Partners, led by the wonderful, marvelous Laura Hansen, who is our senior assessment person, who knows vendors, who knows assessments, and those of you who have worked with her, They've authored the mini assessments with others on our team, and knows K-12. We've been working on a better reporting categories. One thing you should know is we're going to advise vendors to put in a fluency portion to their assessment, because fluency is one of those places. If fluency is broken down, then the chances of students getting the questions right and having read it fast enough so that they can actually get the meaning isn't there. Remember, we showed you, and Meredith spent a lot of time on the complexity of the text, and you all know about the quantitative complexity and the qualitative complexity. So we're going to make a whole new report that bases it on the text. What is the complexity of the text? What's the qualitative characteristics of the text? And then think about the items then that might be asking students about those areas. And then the other really interesting bits, and then text genre. So it's text complexity, text genre, the qualitative characteristics. So the text is front and center all the time. And then the really cool idea, we think on top of that, is to have a student reading profile, so that you can look at, you have a first interim, you have a second interim, you have a third interim. You can look at the individual results of each one of those, but the cumulative results of each one of those. And we think that, so we're going to really keep the focus on the aspects, characteristics, qualitative nature, complexity, genre of the text, and then give teachers some really good information then about what that means they can do. So it's still getting finalized, but one of the things I have to say is, having looked at how none of you stumbled on our second question about what do you know when a student gets something wrong, we're going to need all of your help to really move this and change this, so stay tuned. And Meredith, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add.
No, we're excited about this. We basically are trying to push the interim assessment vendors to do it better. They keep telling us they can't do it better because that's what teachers and principals ask for. So there is a vicious cycle we need to break and start rolling the other way.
And I think we have a minute or two.
Pressure on them we can.
Oh yeah, you guys have to go, don't you? You guys have to take it from there. But there was one question. Can I just do one more question? There was something I said to you. Just teach reading strategies at grade 2, and then forget them after that. Meredith, you and I may have different answers. My answer would be no. You want to be able to activate them. And as a teacher, you want to be able to activate them at certain times. Students might need a little refresher, like I said, turn and talk and paraphrase this section. So it isn't something that you just teach and then forget about. The teacher can activate them, especially when students need them. And you may have another or different answer.
I agree. I would even do a fly-through at the beginning of every year, but I'm not talking 6 weeks. I'm talking about 2 or 3 days.
Right.
Just fly through, get them back.
Just as a refresher, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you never know what students have forgotten. You never know what students got before. So that sounds really good, too.
All right. And then one last tiny question before I wrap up. There were some questions about what a lesson focus might sound like. If the objective isn't, I can reread when I'm feeling confused, or if it isn't, I can compare and contrast characters. What is it? What do we write on our board for the focus of our lesson?
Well, I would take a look at the learning targets that Expeditionary Learning puts out. EL Education has great learning targets. I mean, it can be, I can agree with you when I'm confused, but good Lord, they shouldn't practice that all period. What if they're not confused? That's crazy. Mm-hmm. So put something on the board, but then do the right thing. That's what I would do.
And then there can be something about, I can understand, what the author is saying to me or to us. Something around what it is you're actually learning about. What is the topic of the lesson? So somehow I know something more about something else. Or I can read complex text better. I can read the complex text better than I did yesterday.
Or whatever. Make that into a learning target.
An objective that's specific to the text, like you were saying. If you remember back to the slide, thinking about what do you actually want students to get out of this text, that would be great.
Exactly.
Thank you. There's so much love in the chat box with you both, and excitement about this topic. Our hearts are also full for having such an amazing audience tonight, and wanted to just give a quick one more plug. I put the survey that you can take to sign up for Core Advocates and get notifications about more great webinars. You can find us on Twitter and really start connecting with some of your colleagues like you did tonight. It was so much fun being here with you. We're also on Facebook and Pinterest if you want to find us there, Achieve the Core. And next month we have another great webinar coming up. This webinar is about equity-focused professional learning, and we're really excited about this one. So when you get these resources, that link will be live, or if you sign up for our newsletter by signing up to be a Core Advocate, you will get notified when you'll get notified with that link. So thank you all so very much. We're so appreciative of you spending your time here tonight. We know you're all busy folks. Thank you, and hope to see you here again. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.